Today on The State of Us, nursing homes, living rooms, and bathtubs decline. According to the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. has at least 600 fewer nursing homes than it did 6 years ago, according to a recent analysis. The result is that fairly elderly patients are stuck in hospitals, a dangerous place for seniors, waiting for somewhere to go, sometimes for months. And you might say, what the heck does that have to do with living rooms and bathtubs? Well, homes are getting noticeably smaller, and that might seem strange. Well, the reason is because homes are also getting increasingly expensive, and builders are looking for ways to make those cheaper. So today, we're going to talk about both of these things, but we're also going to explain to you how these are intricately linked in a way that might not seem obvious. Welcome to The State of Us. I'm your host, Justin T. Weller, joined today by the one and only, your friendly redneck liberal and the senior resident historian here at TrueChat, Mr. Lance Jackson.
Well, I'm glad you explained that, because when you said blank and bathtubs, I'm like, what? Bathtubs? What? That doesn't go with
nursing
that.
homes, living rooms, and bathtubs.
One of these things is not like the other. One of these things is not the same. Bathtubs.
A bathtub.
So I'm interested in as the show progresses.
Kind of.
Oh yeah, I'm interested in how the show progresses, because I got to find out about these bathtubs, because got me on the.
Do you like bathtubs?
Not really.
No.
Yeah, I'm a shower person.
A shower person.
Yeah.
Okay. Efficiency.
No, because if you're dirty and you get a bath, then you have all that dirty water around you. So when you get out, I mean, I didn't think about that when I was a kid, but as I got older, I'm like, that really doesn't make sense to sit here and soak in the dirty water, right? I mean,
I'll get in the clean water, make it dirty, and then sit here for a while.
Now I'm older, I probably don't get as dirty, so I could probably, do with a bath. But it's like the other thing is, the water gets cold, and then your teeth are chattering. It's like, you start, making the marks, and it's like, this bath thing.
It's not working for you.
It doesn't work for me.
Okay. Oh. Well, the other thing, getting older too, right? I mean,
getting in and out.
I was going to say, it's going to be more of a chore. You can get a little stool to sit down in the shower.
Yeah.
Amen,
brother. That's what it's the best invention for man right there. A sit-down shower.
Sit-down shower. So nursing homes, let's start with those, because we know how much Lance loves them. 600 fewer nursing homes. The thing that's crazy about this is beds are disappearing while the need for senior care is growing. The American population 65 and older is expected to swell from 56 million in 2020 to 81 million by 2040. So we're losing 100 homes a year, and you're going to go up from 56 million to 81 million. That seems to be an inverse problem here.
I may not be part of the problem by 2040.
No. Though fewer people tend to...
You're agreeing with that? Wow. You might hear from my children.
Yeah.
It's one thing for me to say it, but it's another for you to agree
else
with
says it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, 2040, let's see. Well, no, you should still be around then.
I had to push past 75, 3/4 of a century.
You'll only be 80 then.
No, this is 2023, right?
Uh-huh.
That's 17.
Yeah.
And I'm 62. So in 24, I was 69. 79.
No, 79. Yeah, see, I said 80. That's close. Yeah, you should easily be here 2040. You'll probably live to see 2050, all those terrible things they say are going to happen by then. It's like, I don't know if I want to live that long.
Yeah, there's that. There is that.
So, though fewer people tend to live in countries...
I won't be in a nursing home, I'll tell you that.
Without nursing homes, those countries tend to have more elderly residents than average. For people who need comprehensive care, closures can mean disruptive moves or ending up far from loved ones. The shrinkage was decades in the making. Most older people prefer to stay in their homes, and more Medicaid spending on long-term care has gone to home and community-based services rather than institutions such as nursing homes since 2013. Those forces contributed to a net loss in nursing home beds that has hit nearly every state. For example, in the great state here of Ohio, they have a nice chart, and this is a chart, not a graph. Should we explain that again to folks, or do you think they got it?
No, I think they're getting tired of that.
Okay. They're getting tired. They don't know, but they're getting tired
Exactly,
of it.
right. They're
I
not
can't
sure
tell
what
you
it
what
is.
the difference is.
Graph's
but
not a chart, but a chart's a graph. I don't know, or something like that. I think I flipped it.
You did.
Yeah.
All graphs are charts, but not all charts are graphs. Yeah.
There, you got it in.
So this is a chart. Yeah. It's not a graph. Shortage in certified beds from January 2017 to July of 2023. Okay. Ohio lost 6,000 beds. So, and we're one of the ones in red. The others that are in red.
What's red mean?
It's the worst.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Ohio, 6,000, Massachusetts, Wisconsin, and Kansas. And then close coming up around 4,000 beds. You've got Illinois, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Iowa, New York, Connecticut, California. Okay. So basically, there's almost no state that's unaffected by this other than, well, Delaware managed to avoid it.
A lot of us in the Midwest there, sound like. A lot of Midwestern states.
A lot of Midwestern states. Florida also avoided a net loss in beds, but that probably makes sense given the, So share of the population that is at least 65 years old in counties without a nursing home. 17% of Americans who are 65 or older live in a county with no nursing home. None at all. It's almost 1 in 5 people over the age of 65, even if they needed to go to a nursing home.
Well, that's not the case in our county.
No.
We have plenty of nursing homes.
Do we?
I don't know if we have plenty or not. There's a lot of them.
Have you made arrangements yet, or?
Yes, I've made arrangements to make sure I never go.
So the Biden administration
I will take people out. That's the arrangements I've made. I've told family members I'm not going to a nursing home, and I'm in contact with people who will take out family members if I end up in a nursing home.
Arrangements have been made.
That's right. Just
not the ones that
I'm
you're
making that
anticipating.
public. That's right. I'm making that public.
On the record. The Biden administration has said it plans to set a minimum time that nursing home staffers must spend with each resident. About 7 of 10 nursing homes don't have enough nursing employees to dedicate 4 hours a day to each resident, according to KFF,
Well, yeah,
a health policy
But
nonprofit.
I've talked to your husband about this because Brett used to work in a nursing home. And one of the reasons he quit is because he couldn't do the job legally that he was required to do because he had so many patients on his shift.
Yep.
And so he was very good at what he did, but he quit and went back to school because he said the situation was so bad that he felt he was violating state law and federal law every day at his job because he physically couldn't do what the law said he had to do.
Right.
And then you wonder why you're short staff.
Yeah. You're putting them in a heck of a position.
Right.
So, and I mean, not just staff, obviously, but that's that whole thing with care of you're not providing the care that you're supposed to be providing to. So it's great. On the one hand, obviously,
I guess my point is you can pass the law.
You can mandate whatever you want.
Right. But how are you going to fix it to make sure that it's followed?
And I mean, that's easy to say. The nursing home can put up we're hiring sign, but what if nobody applies? What do you do? You can't serve patients. Well, then here's the consequence of that, right? Those places shut down. So, for example, in Massachusetts,
places shut down because they couldn't get enough workers.
Right. Well, and then you can't meet the requirements, right? So you can't stay open. So you close, and then, for example, Massachusetts, like Ohio, is one of the states where bed losses are among some of the steepest. Recent state hospital association surveys show that in Massachusetts, 563 patients a month could not leave hospitals for nursing homes when the patients were ready to go. So they had said, I want to leave the hospital. I want to go to a nursing home. 563 of them a month on average were being denied. So you can't leave the hospital because there's no bed for you to go to.
The hospital was wanting to get rid of them as well. I mean, they were physically able to go to a step-down unit in a nursing home.
Everybody agreed that they could leave, So what happens then is hundreds of such patients have spent at least a month in the hospital when they didn't need to be there. Similar delays at hospitals across the U.S. are adding to emergency department backlogs that reached records last year, according to data from the Emergency Department Benchmarking Alliance.
See, now you know I don't want to go to the hospital for anything. Because you could go to the hospital for something, and then they were going to send you to a step-down unit, but you may not have a place. Now you stay in the hospital. And, who goes to hospitals? Sick people. So now what happens to you? You get sick.
You're done with your sickness, but you can't leave
yet. You
get
somebody else's sickness.
Half of patients ready to move from an emergency department to a hospital bed waited at least 2.5 hours in 2022. Just for the record, just anecdotally, my grandmother had to go to the hospital recently, and she spent, it was like 6 or 7 hours in the emergency room after they had decided to admit her because they couldn't move her.
There wasn't a bed open anywhere in the hospital.
So she had to stay in the emergency department, which in turn, of course, meant that the emergency department they literally had beds in the hallway, to put people in because there were no rooms left and there were people waiting, to be seen. So, I mean, what we're trying to get at here is, folks, understanding that nursing homes, having less nursing homes doesn't just affect you if you need a nursing home, right? Because it comes all the way down to the care that you or somebody you care about could receive at the hospital.
Right. You walk into the hospital needing care.
Right.
And they don't have a place to put you to look at you.
We have to wait. And why do we have to wait? Well, because we got people in the emergency department beds who need to be upstairs, who can't be upstairs because people upstairs can't go to the nursing homes. So
there's a real trickle-down effect. It's not just a story about fewer nursing homes and fewer beds and fewer staffs. It affects the entire healthcare industry all the way down.
And that's the impact that you have on part of the impact on emergency departments being so backlogged is, they have an obligation obviously to see people and take care of them. And, you come in there because that's often the first line if you're having a problem that you're going to get. Most people don't, I don't think if you don't spend a lot of time in hospitals, you don't think about it, but almost never do you get directly admitted, to the hospital. You almost always.
If you don't want to be either.
Right.
Because if you are.
Yeah.
Most likely, unless you're having a baby.
It starts in the emergency room. Most likely. Which is fine, especially if they assess you and get you out of there and, you're there for 20 or 30 minutes. That's not a big deal. But if you're there for hours or sometimes days because they can't move you along and it's like, look, we're done with you, but we have to keep taking care of you because we can't just put you in the lobby while you wait to go someplace else. Question though is, Lance, you were really curious at the beginning of the show about those bathtubs. So anyway, what do bathtubs and living rooms got to do with nursing home shortages? Keep it here on The State of Us. We'll be right back. The Wall Street Journal reports that for many people in the U.S., home ownership might be attainable only if they give up a dining room. Home prices are near record highs, frustrating millions of potential buyers who feel priced out of the housing market. Home builders are having to find ways to make their product more affordable to increase their pool of customers. Since 2018, the average unit size for new housing starts decreased 10% nationally to 2,420 square feet. Home sizes are shrinking the most in some of the hotter markets of previous years. The Seattle area, where the size of newly built homes is 18% smaller than it was 5 years ago, tops the list. Shrinking the size of a new single-family home is an increasingly popular way to lower costs. Smaller homes can help cost-constrained buyers facing high mortgage rates. They also can boost the bottom line for builders who are contending with spiraling labor and construction costs.
It makes sense, right? I mean, people only have X amount of dollars that they can spend on their living arrangements. And so if you're building homes, it doesn't do you any good to build homes that are bigger than what people can afford, because then they're going to sit empty. So if you want to sell them, which is what you're trying to do, so you can make money, then you make them smaller. I mean, that makes sense, but then what do you leave out? Right. I mean, that then becomes the question. Do you just make them small? And, the other way you can make them smaller, though, I mean, let me ask you, because you're a homeowner like I am. Would you rather have more rooms and have the rooms smaller, or fewer rooms in your house but have more rooms available? Say it's the same square footage.
So the total square footage is the same either way. And you can either have that broken up into more rooms.
You can have a kitchen, a dining room, a living room.
Right. Or less rooms.
3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a study, how you can divide it up how many you want. Would you rather have more rooms?
Well, like I think about our house right now, our home was built in 2005. And it's interesting because in a lot of ways, I mean, I don't think we necessarily knew it when we bought it, but for a small, it's 3 beds and 2.5 baths. So like, it's not, tiny.
But how many square feet?
It's like 1,700 square feet. Okay. So
yeah, I've looked at those. Those are small rooms.
So
compared to where I live.
Right. Well, yeah.
My house was built in 1900 and we added on in 2003.
Yes.
2 houses in one. But when we added on, we made those rooms even bigger than the original house in 1900. But we had 1,700 square feet with only 1 bathroom and 3 bedrooms.
The way they set up our house, which was I think in a lot of ways was probably, it was pretty smart. I mean, given its size, they really tried to maximize the space. So the ground floor, everything on the first floor is open concept, living room, kitchen, dining room, study nook, and half bath. So what they did was, it's not complete open concept, right? Where like there's no walls at all and everything's just in the same space, but there's no doors separating those rooms except for the bathroom. So it's very open, but you can still for example, somebody can be in the living room and watch TV and somebody can still be in the dining room and you can both do things. And like you can hear and see the other people, but because of the way it's broken up, it's decent. So all of that living type stuff is on the ground floor. And then they put all 3 bedrooms upstairs. And so it was a very effective.
With the 1 bathroom.
There's 2 bathrooms upstairs.
Oh, okay.
Because it's 2.5 baths.
Gotcha.
So you got 2 full bathrooms upstairs, one that is private to the master bedroom, and then one that's shared between the other 2 bedrooms. And then you have a half bath downstairs.
I keep trying to, because we're looking, right, for a place. And I keep trying to look to get into a 1,700 square foot house. And we have 2,700 square feet now. And we're downsizing. We're slowly getting rid of things. But I just, when I walk in houses, anything under 2,000 square feet just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
Even though there's only 2 of us.
Yep.
So I don't know. That's why I was asking. So I just wondered.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's worth, like I said, I've never seen another home our size that somebody decided to lay out this way. So it'd be nice to meet the architect because, I mean, I think they did
And you have no basement.
No basement. Yeah. Just a crawl space. Now, we do have a 2-car garage that's, attached and a big like back porch thing. So, but those are not part of the 1,700 square feet living space. I think it's actually like 1,800 square feet, but give or take a little bit. Okay. So, but the point is that you're seeing more of these homes now, like Estridge Homes, which is a semi-custom home builder that operates near Indianapolis, recently launched a new neighborhood concept with detached homes that are 300 to 500 square feet smaller, which has made them $50,000 to $75,000 cheaper than it typically builds. And what are they cutting out? Well, there's where we come back to the beginning of the show. You said, well, you got to have a place to bathe, but you don't have to have a bathtub, right? Bathtubs take up more space than a shower. So if we use the shower, the whole bathroom gets smaller. And also, maybe we're not doing, like we talked about, my house is 2.5 baths. It doesn't have to be. You go to older homes, right? Or even older apartments, like one of them that my company owns, it's 3 bedrooms with 1 bathroom.
Right.
And not a half bath either, just 1 bathroom.
Right.
So they're also looking at some of those older trends as saying, well, it's nice, but adding those bathrooms, really expensive, really expensive. So we knock out, maybe we don't put in 2 bathrooms, maybe we put in 1 bathroom, or maybe we put in 1 full bathroom that has a bathtub and the other one only has a shower.
So the reason to do it is, like I said, right? People have X amount of money to spend on a house. One way to meet their demand is to build a smaller house. And one way to build a smaller house is to throw the bathtub out, put a shower in.
Now, one thing that they do point out in the article is that
or limit them to 1 bathroom.
Right, or limit them to 1 bathroom. Despite even smaller homes, they won't make a big enough dent in the purchase price for most entry-level buyers or provide an answer to the nation's severe housing shortage.
Yeah, but that's that other trickle down or trickle up, right? If you get people who are in the starter homes to go to these new homes, then it will open up. I mean, somebody, right? Maybe these aren't entry-level homes that are being built, but they're being built for somebody to live in. So it's going to alleviate the housing crunch somehow, right? I mean, because whoever moves into them was living somewhere.
Right. The challenge,
unless they're living in mom and dad's basement.
The challenge, though.
That would be a starter home.
That would be an entry-level buyer. The challenge is, you think about, for people like you, I mean, in some ways, it's the problem that you're facing. The home that you've been in, you're willing to downsize, but you're not willing to downsize that much. So, what do we do with those people? Because okay, well, your home could become available and you could put a new family that's going to be there for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever. Well, that'd be great. But you don't want one of these Estridge built homes, that's 1,700 square feet. So, and then to the point of, though, who's going to buy it? Because the share of new home projects that priced below $400,000 has declined in nearly every major home building metro since 2018. For entry-level buyers across the nation, the cost of owning a home increased 72% from February of 2020 to May of 2023.
In talking to my daughters, that's something that those of us in the older generation don't understand, because both my daughters are very well established in their fields, and they're getting their coworkers, older coworkers, are constantly telling them, "Why aren't you buying a house? Why aren't you buying a house? So-and-so's selling it." And they go, "We can't afford it." Well, yeah, you can. I mean, they're a teacher too, or they're in the healthcare profession or whatever. And my daughters will show them, no, their house is $450,000. What? I mean, when they bought it, it was $150,000. Right. Exactly. When they bought it, it was. But now, for me to get in it,
yep,
I have to come up with over $400,000.
Well, and here's your comparison. Inflation adjusted cost per square foot, right? So taking inflation into account, increased about 2.5% on average between 2012 and 2020. But in both 2021 and 2022, it increased nearly 4%, according to Johns Byrne Research and Consulting. So the effect is that the cost of owning a home increased 72% from February of 2020 to May of 2023. The other thing is, the smaller floor plans usually mean that buyers are getting less space for their dollars. Lower list prices might make the overall price cheaper, but buyers are paying a much higher price per square foot. One of the things that's been talked about is that whole trend in tiny homes, which are homes that are less than 400 square feet. You'll also find that often you're paying something like $300 per square foot for that home, because you're taking the essentials, right, like bathrooms and kitchens, and putting them in a smaller space. So you have to think about, in a big home, right, it's not the walk-in closet that ate up your high cost per square foot.
Right.
It's that you had 3 bathrooms and a kitchen, and maybe a galley kitchen.
The expensive rooms.
The expensive rooms are the ones that take up the cost. So just because you get rid of those, if you still have bathrooms and kitchens and you shrink overall square footage, it's a good justification from builders about saving money. And it does, but, we knocked $50,000 off, but you could have knocked $100,000 off. So it made it possible for you to buy it, but you ended up paying a lot more per square foot than you could have for a house that, yes, the total price would have been greater, but the price per square foot would have been less. So how's this all come together? It's bad. Nursing home beds are going away. They're disappearing. They're declining. Bathtubs, living rooms. Who needs them? What do they got to do with each other? Keep it here on The State of Us. We'll be right back. We'll turn it over to the senior resident historian. What the heck do nursing homes and bathtubs and living rooms have to do to each other? I mean, is there really any connection between there being less nursing homes and there also being smaller homes that are more expensive?
Well, the conclusion I'm drawing is that for some reason, in this big, huge country of ours, we have a problem with where we're putting everybody.
Old and young alike.
Exactly.
Middle-aged and everybody.
It doesn't matter what stage of life where you are. We don't seem to have a building to put you in for your stage of life. Whether you're on your way out or you're on your way up. You know, I mean, we don't have enough beds. Right. If you're sick or elderly, and can't take care of yourself anymore. And if you're young and coming professional, we don't have any homes that you can afford to buy to get started to create your wealth in your lifetime. And then that then leads to a shortage of apartments, which is why we didn't talk about it today, but we've talked about it before on the show. The number of homeless in the United States continues to go up. Why? Because there are no apartments for them to rent. We know we've done stories and different cities are trying different things. We know here, even in our small town, we've had a couple of hotels that have turned into places for people to rent by the month. Basically an apartment, except all it is a hotel room. And I know that in 2 or 3 of the larger communities around us, the same thing has happened, to the point that some city governments are starting to outlaw that. They're saying, well, we don't want those people, air quotes there, to be living in these hotels because it's really, quote, bad for the neighborhood. And it's like, well, if they don't have these hotels to rent out, that means they're back out on the street. So what are you doing for them? Well, we don't have a plan. So, I mean, that's the connection I draw. I don't know. Do you draw something different from it? I mean, it just seems like for as wealthy as we are, and I understand recession and economy, but for one of the wealthiest nations in the world, the common theme is there's no room at the end.
No, I don't draw a different conclusion. It basically sounds like what I've said every time that we do a housing show, which is, if you want to find the single greatest component of the haves and the have-nots and success and not success, it goes back to housing. I mean, we did the show, years ago now about how zip code is such an important determinant of your long-term health and success. And that's reflected in housing. If you can't afford to live certain places, that impacts everything in regards to your life, And if you can't afford to ever own a house, it greatly, based on the way we've built our economy currently, and we can always talk about there's a different way to build it, but if we're going to assume that the economy stays the same, we've made home ownership an important fundamental component of long-term wealth generation. So if you can't ever buy your home, or if you have to wait 10 or 15 years longer than somebody else used to have to wait, that has a big impact on your lifelong earning and buying potential.
Well, like we talk about all the time, housing is an economic multiplier, right? You have people who can't get into houses. They're buying less furniture. They're, less dishes, less everything, less stuff. And that affects the economy.
Well, you're consuming less.
Right. You consume less because you're in a smaller place and you don't have as much money. So you don't have as much wealth. So you consume less. And if everybody consumes less, then that affects all the people who sell stuff to us, and their stores don't make any money. then that hurts the job market because they don't need to keep as many people around because there's not enough of us walking in to their stores. Or even now, I'll get into the 21st century, we're not ordering it online and having it delivered. So there's less delivery drivers necessary because none of us have any space and we don't have any money. So we're not buying. So it hurts the economy overall. So it doesn't matter where you fall in the economy, this shortage of having a place to lay your head down every night and to be upwardly mobile does hurt us all.
It is estimated that there are more than 16 million vacant housing units in the United States. The overall vacancy rate in the U.S. is 11.6%. So 1 in 10 of our housing units are vacant. And you would say, well, gee, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Why are rents so high and people can't buy homes and we can't build enough homes? But you just told me that there's 16 million housing units that are empty.
Is it the famous location?
And on the location front, a lot of those vacant units and vacant land are in small towns. So when the big city rush took place, or the most recent one, I mean, it's happened a lot of times in our history, small towns were upended, lots of people left and went to the city. Well, what they left behind were abandoned homes that never got purchased and have fallen into states of disrepair. Our town's a great example of that. There are empty lots in a number of different places across town, a bunch of condemned homes. They're just sitting there and they're not doing anybody any good. In fact, they're costing money because they're dangerous. They're a great place for crime. And the taxpayers have to pay to, cut down the forest that grows on the premises to keep it semi-safe. So I think that what this comes back to for me, we always talk about how to solve it. I would use our town and some of our neighboring communities that have really looked at how do you build investment in small town USA to make it a place that people can again live. We're not necessarily talking about having to build on lots of additional new land. In a lot of cases, we're talking about putting to use things that aren't in use, or buildings. For example, our downtown's a great example of that. As long as I've been alive, probably more than half of all square footage in downtown Urbana has been vacant, So it's square footage, it's there. It's buildings that are taking up land, but they're not doing anything for anybody. They're not providing offices. They're not providing retail. They're not providing apartments. They're doing nothing, but they're sitting on land that's not being used. So I would challenge that we have to get very serious about rural development initiatives, identify small towns that have these high rates of units and figure out what do we have to do, right, to make it possible for people to live there. Because we see lots of people who would like to choose to do that. But unless you're a really well-positioned small town, and ours is one of those that's fairly well geographically positioned, you're going to have a hard time attracting people if you don't have the proper infrastructure.
I mean, those workers, we did a story back during the pandemic about workers who could work from home. There were small towns that were recruiting them in the Midwest.
Yep.
Things like, no taxes for 2 years, or, living space at half the price that you have in the major metropolitan area.
Yep.
And, and investing in the broadband internet that would be necessary for them to work successfully from home, and small towns doing that.
Yep. And moving stipends.
And moving stipends. True. We'll help move you out here.
Yep.
And maybe it's time for us to do a follow-up on that and to see how successful they are. Now, we do know, though, that the push by business owners is to bring people back into work. But the push from the workers are they don't want to go back into work. So part of that, we're going to have to see how that struggle works as well. Because businesses still need workers, and the boss wants you to be downtown at the business. But the people who want the job want to stay home. So, I mean, that's like, I've got a family friend who's, would be what, a Gen Xer, right? In their 50s, right?
Yes.
Gen Z, Gen X.
Gen X, right?
Because
Gen Z is
the little younger Bradley group. Yeah.
Hey, Bradley.
Hi, Bradley. But she lives an hour. She and her husband. She lives an hour from work, but she's only required to go in 2 days a month. So she makes the hour drive.
Well, that's not so bad,
right?
I mean, that's reasonable,
right?
You know, and for example,
but again, she's worked at that same company for 25 years, and they're like, "We really want you to come back." She's like, "No," and they said, "Okay, come in 2 days a month, and you and your team pick out the 2 days you're coming in." So they go in the first 2 Wednesdays of every month, and they're done, and then they have 2 or 3 weeks before they have to meet again, and and so therefore they can live nobody who wants to commute an hour,
right?
I mean,
every day.
I know Brett does basically, but nobody wants to do that typically. Right. So there's got to be a way to solve this, right? I mean, there is. We just have to look at it differently. We can't keep, just like we say about everything else, you can't keep doing the same old thing that you used to and expect the outcome to be any different.
Yeah.
You have to do a few different things. You have to think outside the box.
I told somebody, we're going to rent a 3-bed, 1-bath for $1,250 a month. And people around here think that's crazy, but you talk to somebody that lives, for example, in Cincinnati, and they're like, I'd pay $3,000 a month for that if I tried to get that here. So it's not crazy to them, So how do we make it
both
possible?
My daughters are paying more than that for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath.
But that's the whole point of the location thing is what it's about. If we keep pushing to develop in the areas that are already congested where demand is already high, that doesn't fix the problem. People get that stuff and then there's nothing available. So it just keeps driving that demand. You have to diversify that out some and you can only centralize it so much before it becomes what we're seeing, which is that increasing cost component. And on the other hand, it's better for the economy too if you diversify that out some. Better for those towns that have been left behind also.
Most definitely.
Why we do this show today, Lance?
Well, because where we work, True Chat, they have a mission. And that mission is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. And we've done it today, explained to you what a nursing home bed and a bathtub have in common. So that's kind of different. Find that anywhere else out there on the podcast.
That's right.
Okay. Tell your family and friends about us. And if they want to listen, tell them they can find us on Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, and everywhere podcasts are found.
The State of Us releases new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, first thing in the morning as a podcast. Those same episodes are heard on the weekends on AM and FM radio stations across the United States and parts of Canada. For The State of Us, I'm Justin T. Weller.
I'm Lance Jackson.
Special thanks to producer Bradley Butch, and thank you all, our audience, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change. Be sure to check out our website, thestateofus.org, for books, articles, and all the ways to tune in. thestateofus.org.